We're here today to talk about the stormwater benefits of rainwater harvesting. I'm Dr. Peter Coombes. My expertise is systems analysis, but I've done a lot of work on rainwater harvesting. I was recently I still am the editor of the urban book of Australian rainfall and runoff published by Engineers Australia, so this is quite topical for me. And we're having a bit of a chat about stormwater harvesting and the relationship with stormwater management, the relationship with rainwater harvesting, because it's quite a contested area. So I'm showing some slides as well during this talk to explain the concepts and show the concepts I'm talking through. The first issue I want to talk about is the impact of rainwater harvesting on the stormwater management processes. Rainwater tanks or rainwater harvesting at the local scale at households mitigates local flooding, so that's the flooding immediately below your house. And flooding is not just big river floods. Flooding in an urban area is anything from small events that get your feet wet, which is what councils spend most of their money on to build stormwater pipes and gutters in your street, all the way through to the very large river flooding events. So when we're talking about flooding, we're talking about the whole spectrum of flood events that are really being managed using quite a lot of money in urban areas. So the common false perception about flooding is it's only about large river floods, but most of the money in Australia is spent on the small flood events in urban areas. These are the things that rainwater harvesting and other small scale, lot scale, household scale measures can alleviate. Rainwater harvesting has the capacity to supplement the capacity of drainage systems. They're the pits and pipes in your streets that dispose of the stormwater from smaller events. They don't protect you from large flood events. The council drains or the pits and pipes actually manage up to moderate stormwater events, so you don't get your feet wet, cars aren't washed away, there's no property damage and there's no risk to life. Also, rainwater harvesting can decrease the transfer of contaminants to waterways, so they're the pollution that can travel from urban areas through drainage systems and urban waterways and then onto estuaries and bays such as Moreton Bay or Port Phillip Bay. Transfer of nitrogen and phosphorus, for example, are pushed along by the volumes of stormwater runoff into waterways, and they can be quite damaging throughout most countries. Also, if we reduce the regime of flows leaving properties, we also reducing the accumulation of volumes and flashiness of flows as stormwater flows down catchments, and that reduces the erosion and sedimentation in urban waterways and local rivers, and sediments entering bays and estuaries and rivers actually coat, for instance, seagrass that fish rely on to live and support the beginning of the food web with sea life. So the coating and the smothering of vegetation, sea vegetation and river vegetation with sediments, for example, can actually cut off the beginnings of the food chain for aquatic wildlife. And ultimately, rainwater harvesting can contribute to improving the quality of water in our waterways and bays. So how this works, and I've got a picture here that we'll look at. First of all, we've got a house that will have a rainwater tank that will be connected to a roof, and some of the runoff, rainfall that falls on the roof, the rainfall runoff will flow via the roof surface into the gutter system, down the downpipes, into your rainwater tank. Some of that water is stored on site, depending on how much indoor use you have, and some of it will overflow into your street drainage system, which is the street immediately out the front of your house. So the reduced flows from your house because of the rainwater tank will be reduced flows in the drainage system out the front of your house. So in the front of your house, it's often misunderstood. The drainage system that's to protect you from moderate and minor events in your street is actually the road gutter, and the pits and the pipes under the street. It's often conceived it's only the pipes, but it's actually your road that conveys most of the bigger events. So if you're reducing the amount of stormwater that persistently flows onto the road and then into your drainage system, you're changing the need to maintain and replace the roads because of deterioration of the road surface is decreased, and you're also freeing up capacity in the drainage system. Then as the stormwater travels down the catchment in your drainage system, pits and pipe system, it will often flow into a major drainage system or a big system. It might be an open channel, it might be an urban waterway, it might be a larger pipe, and hopefully there'll be a gross pollutant trap, maybe a constructed wetland to clean up the water before it enters an urban waterway or a bay or a receiving water now, or a local river. So this is quite important. So if the frequency, the regime, so and the volume of stormwater, if it's reduced flowing to these devices, say the wetland and the gross pollutant trap that cleans up the water quality, the maintenance regime and the life expectancy of these devices last longer. So that's basically some of the benefits of rainwater harvesting. It also reduces sediment and erosion in the urban waterway, and that changes the flow regime of those contaminants from the urban waterway to the receiving water. So the rainwater harvesting system on your house exists in an entire system.